Welcome to Transformative Principal, where you learn how to be a leader and not just a manager of a to-do list. I am your host, Jethro Jones. You can find me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. Your to-do list is a hungry monster that is never satisfied. For the last year and a half, I've helped principals get awards, get promoted, and find the time to do the work that really matters. I recently opened a new mastermind slot. Schedule a call with me and let's overcome the stressed and isolated principal position together. Go to the show notes for this episode at transformativeprincipal.org and click Schedule a Call with Jethro. This podcast is one of the podcasts that I recorded at FETC earlier this year. If you would like to have me come out and speak at your conference or at your district, please go to jethrojones.com and you can connect with me there. Thanks so much. Enjoy this interview. This episode is brought to you by John Cat Educational, a leading independent publisher with 6 decades of experience supporting teachers and school leaders. Learn about research-based, easy-to-use professional development books for your entire faculty by visiting us.johncatbookshop.com. Welcome to Transformative Principal. This is episode 322, and I am excited to have Matt Pavao. Did I get it right?
You got it right. That's good.
Oh, hallelujah. I'm always worried about that every time. Matt Pavao from Burlingame School District in the Bay Area. Welcome, Matt. Happy to have you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so we are at the FETC conference right now, and I wanted to talk to you because you told about this great thing that you're doing with translating newsletters, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But first, tell us a little bit about your school and about what you do, what's going great there.
Sure. Love to talk about my school. Well, we have lots of things going great at the school and the district. I have a small district in the Bay Area, like you said. We're right near the San Francisco airport. We are a school of 338 students, K-5. We are a Title I school. We are also a school that's very dedicated to innovation and very dedicated to our community and being a real community school. All the schools in Burlingame are committed to being really community schools. So we're really tight-knit community in our district.
Good. And so how many kids are at your school?
338 today. Yeah. We always say about 350 actually, but we just did the count the other day. So 338.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So how long have you been at?
I'm sorry. Yeah. I've been at the school for 8 years. My eighth year at the school as the principal the whole time. Yeah. It's my 3rd year in education. I've done teaching and then and other administration jobs at a middle school. And then this is my first principalship. But
cool. First principalship, and you stayed there for 8 years.
First principalship, 8 years. 8 years.
Man, that's good. So you did something right.
Yeah. We did all right. We're doing okay.
That's good. So typically, we don't see principals staying around that long. And what's the secret to your longevity of still being there?
Well, the interesting thing about the school is I'm only the 3rd principal they've had in something like, they reopened the school. The school's 100 years old this year. So it was built in 1919, but it was closed for some years up until about, I believe 1988. And since then, we've only had 3 principals. So there was a principal there for 10 years, and the one before me was 11, and then me. So I'm the young still. I'm still the newbie in that group. It's such a wonderful job and a wonderful community that I have such exciting people that I work with, and really inspired teachers, and really inspired district that allows me to have this, and community that allows me to have this. There's an expectation that we continue to push towards very innovative practices. We're in the kind of the north end of the Silicon Valley, so a lot of our parents work in the Silicon Valley in jobs that require the creativity and the collaboration and the critical thinking that we talk about, the communication. So they understand that's an important factor in what we have to teach. So they give you this wide berth to kind of really push out into some things that aren't, you must be on page 25 of the textbook today. And at the same time, I think we're a good example to other districts in that we have a wide range of students. We have students of all socioeconomic backgrounds. We'll talk about, we have 27 different languages at this school. That's typical actually for our area. We have a very diverse population. And in that, we were still able to achieve at high levels of the typical, if you want to call them that, academic backgrounds, while at the same time really pushing our innovative practices into things like today, where we're looking at podcasting, or we're doing a lot of creative work with presentations, and so a lot of creativity and design thinking and things like that.
Yeah, that's very cool. So I wonder, how do you One of the previous guests we've had on is Katie Kinnaman, who who was a principal in Palo Alto.
Oh, okay.
And so she talked about this idea of dealing with parents who are really creative and dedicated and focused themselves, and how sometimes, we have helicopter parents, but then there's this other set of parents who are innovators themselves. How do you deal with that? You said a little bit that you try to be innovative, but any other advice on dealing with that?
My advice would be, one is to reach out to them. A lot of the times we have this shutdown method of like, you stay on your side of the fence and I'll stay on my side of the fence.
Right. Stay in your lane. Yeah.
But at Roosevelt and in Burlingame, we definitely encourage parent participation. So a lot of the ideas we have come from parent groups. You meet with them after school and or in the evenings, and if they're willing to give their time to you, and then you can listen to their great ideas, then you can take that and put the educator's lens. At the same time, because of the principles that came before me, there was this foundation of real partnership with the parents that I just inherited it. I've worked hard to keep that going, but it's always been part of our culture at the school and in the district that there's a real partnership. And certainly there are helicopter parents in all walks, but even I wouldn't say we even have, I can't name any that we would have even at my site, but we've always really valued our partnership with the parents, and they valued our professionalism. It's really a special kind of place in that respect.
Yeah, that's very cool. One of my superintendents used to say that your chapter 1 in a school is not that school's chapter 1.
Yep,
and
exactly.
So you highlighted that perfectly with the foundation that those previous principals built, that, what the school built, what did you say, 100 years ago?
It's 100 years. Yeah, this year. Well, 1919. Actually, we passed over, but 1919. We're going to have the celebration this year.
So you're school's on chapter 100, and you're only on your chapter 8, which is, you came in at chapter 92, and that idea of like, there's already so much that's been done leading up to this. There's a lot of power in recognizing that and valuing that and caring about that, like you said.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a real balancing between honoring what was before you and then building, continue to build. And so we've tried to do that in the 8 years I've been there, and it's been successful.
Yeah, that's very cool. So let's talk a little bit about the 27 different languages that your kids speak. That's amazing. And definitely a challenge. The superintendent that actually inspired me to get into education was in Orange County, California, and they had a huge number of languages at their school. And I was just dumbfounded at how they could operate with that many. And you shared that you deal with newsletters in a really creative way. So can you talk about that?
Sure. Let me preface a little bit. So we have this giant wall at our school that we painted this mural on a while back for a lot of different reasons. We had an unfortunate event of some graffiti and this speaks to what our parents are like as well. Typically we just cross out the graffiti, move on our day, but the parents wanted to do more. We did that, got it down immediately, and then went about our day, and then went to say, no, we want to express who we are. And part of that is our 27 languages that we spoke. At the time, I think it was 24. We've grown.
Yeah.
So we built this wall that said, "We are Roosevelt." That's Roosevelt Elementary is my school. And so and then we wrote in every different language on the wall, "We are Roosevelt," in that language.
Oh, cool.
So if you had someone who is speaking Tagalog, it's up there. If you have Russian, it's up there. Chinese, Portuguese. And when you see it, and I look at it almost every day when we come in, it really keeps you focused. So one of the parts we were having struggles with, we have our We Are Roosevelt night where we celebrate all the cultures, but we weren't getting active participation from all our parents. And one of the ideas was, well, we need a translation service to translate our newsletters. And we went through that, and there's a price to that. Yeah. And then we thought, well, we have experts right here in the school. So we should have an audio translation by our students using podcasts. We'll just attach it right to a link on our newsletters. And so what we do is we put it out to the parents and the teachers in the 5th grade, our students in the 5th grade, come and help us translate our newsletter. And so they would show up. Our newsletters go out on Thursdays. They would show up on Tuesdays. I would give them these are the highlights. They would take it home. They would write it out with their parents, and then they would come. So we had, the first year we had Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, and not Russian, but I'm forgetting. We had one more. And we've now since expanded to Turkish, and we have Mandarin Chinese now. So we don't have all 27 right now, but it's powerful for lots of reasons. if you just take out even the part that these students feel valued, which is actually the number one piece. There's a technical aspect to it that the kids are learning how to do podcasting. Some of these kids knew how to speak the language. They didn't necessarily know how to write it out. So they're even learning their own language, which is their parents' language, how to write it out.
And that's an important part of literacy as well. One of the people that I've learned from, I can't remember who it is now, but they said something about how families go through this phase when they come to America, that the kids who are the children speak the language of the parents, but they want to push off that culture and don't want to be defined by that.
Oh, yeah.
And so they avoid speaking their family's language.
Right.
And then their kids are the ones who are like, wait, my grandparents don't speak any English.
Yeah.
I want to communicate with them and know about my heritage. And so they like go the opposite way and want to do everything with that. So that's a really powerful way to build that bond between the students and where they're from and have some pride about it.
Well, and you just bring up something that's just my wife's family comes from China 2 generations ago. Her grandmother came from China, and who just passed at 98 years old.
Wow.
And one of the things that her uncle brought up at the thing was even he had there was always a communication issue with them. And it was powerful. And so the other thing that we say is these, and you just reminded me of another thing that we do with students of their second language students, is we honor them when they do learn English, when they do redesignate as English learners. And we have a full Burlingame. We had 100 and some odd students this year that redesignated. And we have celebration, we have medals and things like that. But when we do it in front of the school, we always talk about how special these students are because of immigration stories like that, that at some point during the life of a family, someone is brave enough to learn English. It was with my grandfather was the first one. And then you see how that then expands out. So if we can hold on to, because you're right, people then give up the language, which isn't necessarily what we want.
Well, and it's so amazing to be able to speak 2 languages, right? And to be able to communicate in more than just one. It for sure is.
Oh, it's a superpower. Yeah. And in this world, and what we're talking about in our students all the time is, the flattening of the world and how we need to be able to now cross-culturally talk to people. And if you know about other cultures, you all of a sudden have a leg up where you thought it was something that was pulling you down. It's actually going to lift you up in the new economy or the new world.
Well, and just in having empathy for other people as well. So
for sure.
So these kids who are going home and translating this, that's building the bond with their parents. That's helping strengthen their language skills in their native language and in English.
Right.
And then having them record it, strengthening and highlighting the gifts that they already have of speaking that other language, and gives them a way to be recognized for that. And we often think of recognition like you get a plaque or participation trophy, right? But recognition is really just respecting and honoring the things that they bring with them.
Well, and we do, and with our translators, they have a place where they become, I hope, elevated at the school, because we do acknowledge them at our assemblies. These people are doing this translation for you guys, so more so the parents will know it's out there. Yeah. But also to honor them for doing the work.
Yeah. And, some people may balk at the idea of having kids do translation when you maybe could or should do a paid translation service.
Right.
But I know how expensive it is to pay for translation, and because it's difficult and it's hard to do. So you're also setting these kids up for a future job role in the future, which is awesome.
Right. And some of these kids come in. We had a student last year who could do the Portuguese, like, I give it to you, you do it. Others need to take it home and write it down and really fit. This guy was,
right.
And he was having struggles in other areas, but you could see if you go in this route, you are a head and shoulders above the rest of the translators that we have at the school. Because
for sure. So in my schools, I've been principal where there are other languages, not 27. But when I was a principal of an elementary school in Utah, or assistant principal there, I learned how to say your son was fighting at recess, because that was what I was dealing with all the time were these kids fighting. And so I learned how to say that. So I would say your son was fighting to make sure the parent got the message. And then I would hand the phone over to the kid and let them just hash it out with their parents. And, these kids are totally fluent in Spanish, which is the language I was talking about.
Right.
And it was amazing to see how the kid who wouldn't say anything to me or in class was having full-on conversations. And I always thought, how can I get this kid to to actually speak and not be so shy. And this is one of those ways that you can bring these kids out of their shells and make it so they don't have to be embarrassed about it.
Oh, sure. Sure. I mean, if I was told, you need to go, you're going to be sitting in a classroom of all Spanish speakers and they all started speaking Spanish, I wouldn't be participating. I know a little bit of Spanish, but I wouldn't be participating. And it's a similar sort of thing, right? You got to put yourself in their shoes on those respects. It's pretty brave kids.
So I think that this way that you're handling this particular problem, I really wanted to talk to you on the podcast because I want other people to hear about that. And there's so many ways that we can use the strengths of the people that we have in front of us to do amazing things.
It's one of those real low floor, high ceilings. Like, it's very easy to do and you get tons out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about it is that because it's low floor, high ceiling, you have so many opportunities to spread the wealth, and that it's not just one kid. And so you could rotate through different families doing it. You could stick with one family that can handle it or whatever. And I think that approach is really, really powerful.
Yeah.
So what else are you doing at Roosevelt that you think is awesome?
Well, one of the things we're really proud of is we have and we talk about communication in this, and we're very dedicated to giving our students the skills to communicate with others. We have this thought that, and I know a lot of schools are working on design process and it's fantastic. And certainly we are too, and getting kids to be creative problem solvers and things like this. All right. Our philosophy is that it's not an idea unless you can share it with someone and get them to understand your idea. So how do we do that? Well, we worked with a company in the Silicon Valley, and there's a long story about how we came about with this, but called Duarte Design. The Silicon Valley, and Nancy Duarte and her husband Mark started this company, and they work on giving high-powered CEOs the skills to give presentations. They were going to work with the college level students. I knew someone at the company. We kind of worked it out so that they could came and work at elementary school.
Sweet.
So now, it's been fantastic. They've been working with us for 6 years now, which is interesting because we've gone through a full cycle now from kindergarten all the way to fifth grade. They don't know any different. So every year our fifth graders give what we call our Teddy Talks. We're Teddy Roosevelt Elementary School. So we give our Teddy Talks at the end of the year, and they give a presentation in front of a room full of about 200 people. We invite local celebrities, our local Congress people and things like that, come and visit. And they stand up there and give about a 5-minute presentation in a TED Talks type format about an idea that they've had. And they're trying to move people forward. And you'd be hard pressed to find people at the conference today, which is a great conference, that give better presentations than these kids.
Yeah, that's cool.
10 years old. It's fantastic. And it's transformative in how they even view themselves.
Yeah.
So what we do, that's one thing we're very proud of, is our Teddy Talks program.
John Catt Educational supports high-quality teaching and learning by providing publications that are research-based, practical, and focused on the key topics proven essential in today's and tomorrow's schools. Visit us.johncattbookshop.com to see the latest publications with these exciting ideas: creating bottom-up school transformation, promoting engagement by challenging the extrovert ideal, and how to improve formal and informal continuous learning opportunities for teachers. These books, used by educators of all roles across North America and worldwide, amplify fresh, engaging voices with practical strategies to create transformative change. Learn more in the show notes at transformativeprincipal.org. So it's really fascinating to hear you talk about this, because the idea of adults is that we're all afraid to speak in public, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And so adding in this ability for young kids to be able to do that really shatters this fear that like 90% of adults have, that doesn't need to exist. And it's so powerful to be able to share your own story. And I love what you said. That's not an idea unless you can share it. That's beautiful.
And what I'll tell you that is, not only is it hard for adults to give presentations, is that they learn about giving presentations from watching other people that don't know how to give presentations.
Exactly.
So it's just perpetuating this bad presentations that you sit through. It all comes from, our need to do this comes from me walking into a classroom and seeing a third grade teacher suffering while her kids were up there giving presentations that were boring and uninspiring, and it was typical of everything I'd seen in all my years of education. And there has to be a better way, and we went and found a better way. So we're hoping that we're changing the way. Yeah, and again, in this age where you're going to need to be able to get your ideas out there, we think we're giving our students a real skill that they're going to need.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. So what are the the keys, and you don't have to go into all of it, obviously, but what are the keys to good presentations that the kids understand that adults need to know as well?
Sure. The number one is that the audience is first, meaning it's not about you, it's about your audience. What do they need? You give it to them. The second is if it's a good presentation, it vacillates between what is now and what will be. So this is what your life is now, but if you listen to my ideas, this is what it will be, and it'll be much better. And the audience should almost feel like they're going on a roller coaster ride where it's like, oh, I don't know about this. Oh, it's going to be great. Oh, I don't know about this. Oh, it's going to be great. And then we have a few other things like how to do an introduction and how to finish it off with what Nancy Duarte calls something they'll always remember, or your star moment, STAR, something they'll always remember. And so we try to do that. And there's a few other. And then the other main probably thing is how they do their slides. So they do present with slides, and they have to control, a PowerPoint presentation or a Google Slides presentation. But there's things that we put in that, like lots of slides are too busy, or there should only be 5 words on a slide, or you should be able to read it in 3 seconds and understand it. It ruins you from going to other presentations because you sit there and go, oh, that's a terrible slide. And there's another teacher that I have sometimes. So if I ever see you getting a presentation, I take out my phone and take a picture of the slide.
Yeah.
I might be sending it to another teacher that I always send, look at this slide, add that to the collection. But it has been wonderful for the 6 years that we've been doing this. The kids they get it. And you start to see changes now over time because we check in with the middle school and things like that.
Yeah, that's very cool. So I was talking to my daughter, and in our church, so my daughter's 12, in our church, the kids do teaching of their peers. And we were talking about this idea of the audience comes first. And I said, it all depends on what your class is, how they're interacting with what you're doing. And if they look bored, they probably are. And so you need to do something different. And it has to be what they actually need. You can't just say, here's what I want to talk about and only talk about that, because then they're going to be bored and tune out and not care about what you're saying.
You're totally right. It also comes from the planning of the presentation. Like our students, oftentimes it's the last, you'll do a project. The presentation is the last day. Go do your project. Now I want a presentation.
Exactly.
They're doing the work on the presentation the whole time. They're doing the research on the project. And so they're laying out their slides using Post-its, and they're talking about what questions the audience might have. They're drawing pictures of the audience. Who's going to be sitting there watching me? So they're considering it all the time. Well, if you read the book Resonate by Nancy Duarte, they're a little plug for Nancy and her company.
Well, when you said that, I knew that I had read something by her and I could not place it.
Okay.
But I believe it's Resonate.
Yeah.
And so, I knew that name when you said it.
She has several books out.
Yeah.
But, that's the cornerstone.
Yeah,
I think.
very cool.
Slideology is another one. But.
Yeah, Slideology. That's the other one.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. All right. So
we work with her.
Well, that's awesome. I guess that's one of the benefits of being in Silicon Valley.
It is. We have been very fortunate with that one, and they've been very, very nice to us.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. So the last question that I ask everybody on my podcast is, what is one thing that a principal can do this week to be a transformative principal like you?
Okay, I would say just get into classrooms and talk to teachers, and really not only have the expectation that they'll keep pushing their practice, but also have the trust. They need to have trust with you that you will back them if they're going to try something new. Oftentimes we have teachers and it's always an easy default. Well, I'll get in trouble if I do that. At Roosevelt, we don't try to get in trouble, but we always kind of have an explanation as to why we're doing something. And that's easy for me to then go tell my people, my superintendent, hey, we're going to try this out, see how it goes, or we're trying this out and we're going to see how it goes. But we want brave leaders or brave teachers, so we need to be brave leaders. So I would get into classrooms as much as possible. My number one, go talk to teachers.
Yeah, and this goes back to things that you've hinted at before, that it's about having that connection with them so that the things that they're doing can be valued regardless of where they're at. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. Okay,
well, Matt, thank you so much for being part of Transformative Principal.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, and this was episode 322. So you can go to transformativeprincipal.org/episode 322 and get any of the things that we talked about. And thanks again, Matt, for being part of it.
Thanks, Jethro. My pleasure.
Hey, this is Jethro. Thanks so much for listening to that episode of Transformative Principal. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I want to remind you, I am going out on my own. So I'm looking for opportunities to help schools implement things that are related to student-driven learning. So if you'd like to work with me, please go to jethrojones.com, and you'll be able to enter your information there, and we can schedule a chat to talk and figure out how we can help move kids forward and be in control of their own learning. Thanks so much. That's jethrojones.com. Thank you to our valued partner, John Catt Educational. If you are a leader looking to make transformative change with professional development that is research-based and rigorous, yet easy to digest and full of practical strategies, check out the latest publications from John Catt. Visit us.johncattbookshop.com to find more information on bulk orders or learn much more in our show notes at transformativeprincipal.org.